Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable, Behavior Explained. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Adaptable. I'm Kelly, and I'm really excited to have you here today to talk about parenting as a single person. I've got with me Christina Egarola. She is a licensed associate counselor that works with me, and she is a rock star and friend, and I'm so happy to have you here. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and why this topic is one that you feel passionate about.
Well, I think with the passion of it is I'm living it every single day. This is the life that I have as a single parent. I'm a mom of 4 kids who range from 9, 11, 13, and an almost 15-year-old. And so 3 boys and a girl, and it's just utter chaos in our household. And it wasn't planned. So I met their father when I was in the Marines. He was a Marine as well, stationed in Tucson, and we dated, we got married, we had children, we're together for a significant number of years, and as things sometimes do, we changed. And so the relationship just wasn't what it was originally, and we just didn't have that connection anymore. And so we later separated, divorced, and the kids now are primarily in my care. So really it is passion because it's my kids. It directly involves my family.
Right. Mm-hmm. And just thinking about what that looks like. I too have 5 kids. Most of their life I raised 4. And I felt tired just hearing you say those age ranges when I was thinking about my history. And now that I'm an empty nester, I mean, I really revel in the quiet, and I revel in just not having someone have something wrong or need something all the time, because it's just constantly and chronically taxing, and it's almost always stressful. Mm-hmm. When I thought about it, when I had my kids, not any one of them was really difficult or hard or troublesome, but it was like they took turns having an issue. Mm-hmm. And because of that, there was always something demanded by me. Right. And so when I think about that and what you're currently going through, when it comes to managing stress, what are some things that you have to do to manage the stress of it? Because it's chronic and it's constant.
So I would say the first and foremost, the most important thing is to be adaptable. Being rigid as a single parent is just not going to suffice. That is a really great path to burnout. And so being flexible, being able to compromise where, maybe you had plans and you had, an interview, or maybe you had an appointment. If the appointment can be moved because there's, an emergency with one of your children, really, children take precedence because they didn't have a say in the matter. So you really put their priorities ahead of yours, and that's in that way. But then after being adaptable, I would say resource, social network, build your community. Like it's not an avenue that I don't think anyone can really do alone.
Right. And that's something that I remember as part of your evolution in our relationship at Infinite. And, you had this stance when I met you, like, I have no one, I have to do it by myself. And part of our culture and our community with Infinite is that, we really want to be a work family that you can rely on, and that's true and that's authentic. And it's not to say that we're not going to have requirements that are part of our ethical professional guidelines, but it's to say that first you're a human. Yeah. And I've seen a growth in you with being more transparent, more willing to lean in, and, even just reflecting on our recent supervision. Will you tell our audience what you said when you came in? Like the first, I said, "How are you doing?"
Yeah. So I did get my children's permission to tell this story, but it has been one thing after another since the start of school. And, unfortunately, 3 out of 4 of my kids have gotten some consequences. And then our oven caught fire, and then our dishwasher stopped working. My car broke down right before we went to the retreat. And I remember coming in and
I feel
saying,
like your AC had just gone out not that long ago.
Yep. It's just when it rains, it pours. And I just remember telling you, because you do have to be able to have a sense of humor is I need a welcome mat that just says, welcome to the shit show.
Right.
Just that's what it is.
Right.
Lean into the chaos, lean into, the jungle of highs and lows, ebbs and flows. And, you might have those pockets of calm, but they're few and far between when you're a single parent, and a single parent of multiples, especially. So,
right.
Yeah.
Someone always kind of needs something, and that's while still managing the stressors of just adulting, which, lately there's so many funny memes about adulting, and I don't want to, and it's bullshit. And I think I couldn't agree more.
Right.
Some days you just wake up and you're just like, damn, I got to do this.
Like Groundhog's Day.
Right.
Yeah.
Like again, today, all
Absolutely.
the things, and it never stops. Right. I can remember that when my poor kids, I had a magnet on my fridge when they were young that said raising children is like being pecked to death by a chicken. And I know that was probably insensitive, but it is how it felt as a mother.
Yeah.
And so, hindsight 2020, that was probably not a really nurturing magnet to have. I wasn't a therapist at the time. I was a different kind of person, and I hadn't yet started therapy. So it was just way more say it like it is without the nuances of worrying about how that might land for those who walked by it every day while they made their breakfast and read it, like I'm a burden. I'm like, shoot, I don't know why I was putting that on the fridge.
Yeah.
But that to say, the other thing that I think comes up, and I know you can only speak as a single mother as opposed to a single dad, but as a single mother, especially you with all of your training and knowledge and everything with development, what's it like to navigate those moments of confidence issues? And like, how do you deal with those moments of self-doubt? And do you have any specific ones you would be willing to share with us?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. First, I want to honor that, there are many times where you're going to question yourself as a single mom, a single parent. That's why they have dark chocolate and wine and locks on the closet door, right?
So you can find yourself doubled over, crying and just wishing. Yeah.
And so, once you get past that little bit of, woe is me type, honor that moment, it's about saying, what can I do now? What's within my control? And how do I honor myself and reassure myself that I'm doing the best that I can possibly do? Because there are going to be things outside of our control, right? We are raising humans who are their own individual people. They're going to make their own choices. And so the hardest thing
is... As much as I tried to program mine to be the way I thought they should be, that all is a big, huge joke. I mean, you think that you have control, and it's just this fun little farce that you tell yourself you have any control.
Imagining if I just say it one time, they'll listen, and they'll listen with a smile on their face.
Right, and they'll just say, sure thing, Mom, right away. Yeah. That's so funny and cute.
And so you have to honor where they're at too. And really going back to adaptability and being resilient in that way is, if your children make mistakes, that's part of life. Right. And the beautiful thing is that they get to make those mistakes with you as a child, rather than an adult where the repercussions may be more severe. So saying, hey, this is what happened. Maybe you did something at school, you didn't do your homework, maybe you did an unkind thing to another student, maybe they talked back to you because they're also going through their own thing. It's giving space. It's saying, okay, I'm feeling something coming up in me. I'm seeing something come up in you. We're going to take a break. How about 10 minutes, or maybe we circle back tomorrow, because this is, it's hard. And especially if you're living in that family system, and if you don't really have very many people to defer to, it's constant. It's constant interaction, constant triggering, right? It's kind of like when you think about atoms and how they're just kind of those molecules moving around and stuff.
That's a great metaphor for a family system.
And then sometimes, they
bounce off of one another, and there's not really a rhyme or a reason oftentimes that's predictable for sure.
Yeah. Honoring those, I would say, and then having something that's just for you. So whether that's a hobby, whether it's connecting with friends, even I have a couple of friends that every 4 to 6 months I see. It's not often, but you know what? We pick up where we left off, and we kind of give each other the rundown of like the house is on fire, the chaos that's going on in the background. And then it's,
it's being validated, it's being felt. And it's, a lot of people don't like the word pity, but it's actually a synonym for compassion. And we have to have compassion for self when shit is just hard. Yeah. And especially when we didn't do anything to cause it. Right. And we're still there to weather the storm. And so we have to sit down. We have to have our pity party. We have to cry. We have to take our moments, and also reaching out and cultivating connection with others, if not for the solution, just to be felt in that space is so necessary and really, really helpful to have somewhere to download.
Absolutely. Even I have a friend who she lives out of state, and we send memes back and forth, and that's our love language, but it's a way for us to connect and, get out what it is that we're going through, and having someone in your corner in that way that, maybe isn't present, but they're rooting for you. That can speak volumes as well. And that can give great capacity for waking up every day and saying, oh, I have to attend this shit show again.
Right. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to fall short. We're going to make mistakes. And you mentioned before, when your kids mess up, showing up with grace, showing up with, an opportunity to model for them, imperfections expected, if not certain. And that we need to be able to give them room to fall down and to make mistakes, and to model for them acceptance, unconditional acceptance, even when they make mistakes. And so, of course, it's harder when we get stuck in that perfectionism loop when we're a parent. And especially, like I said before, you've read the books, the rules, and yet you're still human with that amygdala that gets activated because of the stimulus in your home and the interactions and the conflict and all of those things. And so how do you deal with personally those moments of where we fall down? In Brene Brown's work, we're in the arena. For you, you're in the arena of parenting every day, all day. There's no reprieve from that. And when we fall down, we're going to get our ass kicked. We're gonna fall short. We're gonna have those times of mistakes and problems. What do you do to navigate those moments of falling short or the mistakes?
So I think, before doing that, it's about cultivating a certain type of culture within your family system as well. And I'll be honest, Brene has that Netflix special, and I am a big proponent of educating my children and talking about what it is that we're feeling, what we're going through, what we're experiencing, being vulnerable, opening up ourselves to trusting others, even though it feels hard. And so giving them that verbiage really allowed me to just let them in when I'm feeling a certain way and say, hey, mom's not on her game today. I might have snapped at you this morning, or I might have, walked away when you were talking to me because I just felt this overwhelming sense of just utter chaos, internal chaos, right? But that has nothing to do with you. It's what's going on inside of me. I love you. We'll talk about it in a minute, or when I'm settled. And so I think when we're talking about how do we move through when we mess up, just name it.
Right.
Just name it.
I think there's nothing better that a parent can do than own their mistakes, take full accountability when they blow it, mean it, come in with some humility, model for them, you know what, I'm just human. I'm doing the best that I can. I know that I fell short. And you do deserve better, and I'm going to keep working on it. And I think that kids are so incredibly resilient, and they see the humanness in us. They see more than anybody else sees. Our kids know. They know what we're going through, and as much as we try to protect them.
Even when we don't think so.
They know better. I always say to my clients, I'm like, you want to know what's really going on in the family? Give me some time with that kid. They'll tell you everything.
Absolutely.
And they're honest, and they see it. So when you think about that and just giving them space to be the humans that they are, and then also it models maybe they can give you the grace to be the human that you are. And cultivate that self-acceptance and that positive regard for self, I think is probably primarily the most important thing we can do for a kid.
And recognizing that if you have multiple children, or wherever, stage in life your child is, they may not be able to authentically give it to you the way that you want them to. So understanding that there's a growth there, an evolution of that skill set. But if you implement it early on, and you support it, and you reaffirm it, and you talk about it often, and you invite them into conversation, I feel like there's such a disconnect, in families a little bit, just because of social media. And one of our rules in our household is it's my children don't access social media in our household, because I want that human connection with them.
So easy to escape, and it's not it's not useful.
Yeah. And then those
numbing tactics.
invisible muscles that we need
Right.
to navigate life, they don't grow, they don't stretch. And part of that is the discomfort,
Sure.
you know, is like, I'm really mad at you, Mom, because you didn't show up for me the way that I wanted to. Good. Tell me, express yourself, you know, in a respectful way.
Sure.
Don't get too big for your britches, but, but, you know, open up that dialogue and be like, I'm so glad you came to me with this. And if you feel triggered, say, hey, I need a minute. You know, I'm going to process what you've just told me and we'll circle back. Right.
It's hard, especially as a single parent, because, you know, you are so alone with it. And we just all want to be seen so bad as humans. And so when they're coming at you with the things you're doing wrong and you're I'm trying so hard, you know?
Yes.
And it's hard not to feel defensive.
Yeah.
It's hard not to feel like, you know, prove yourself and share all the...
Name all the things that you're doing that they don't see that you're doing.
You don't know what it's like, you know, and it's we really need to try hard to refrain from that, because it's really not their job to understand that. And also they didn't put themselves in this situation. They're just bystanders in the situation. So another thing that's really important that we discuss is just creating attachment. And when you have a lot of children, I always talk to clients about when there's a family of multiples, which you're discussing, which I had, you know, there's only 2 boobs, 2 eyes, 2 hands. The touch is limited because you're just one resource. And so oftentimes it's really tricky to provide all of the moments that create and cultivate secure attachment in a child, especially when there's so many, and then doubling down on that and you're by yourself most of the time. So when you think about secure attachment, what are some tips and tricks you can give our audience and things maybe that you do that help to sow those moments, plant those seeds of secure attachment as best as you can?
So you're right. When you have multiples, those moments are going to be few and far between, right? So it's about making those moments as best as they possibly can. Quality, right? Just connecting and bonding without expectation. And so I would say, as long as you have a schedule or a routine that's consistent, you are now creating security for your children. You're creating something that's reliable. So even if you aren't having those moments of like heart-to-heart conversations, that's something that they can return to and look at and be like, you know, Mom or Dad, they really created a safe place for me and things that I could rely on. So, you know, the wool wasn't pulled out from, you know, under me. And so there's that. And then, you know, something that my kids and I do, we play board games. Sure. And, you know, I did try to play Monopoly with them once and it ended in tears.
I hate
I'm pretty
Monopoly.
sure I have a picture of each
so many
one of them
family
crying.
stories of trauma and Monopoly. I think it's a terrible game.
We're gonna put that one away for now. It's an opposite reaction that I was hoping for.
It's like breeds, you know, greed and like, it's an interesting game, but I think that's great. And that's a family group of connection. But I think it's also really important that we try to carve out time one-on-one with our kids and creating special moments and activities or patterns of behavior that are predictable with each kid. And it may be something different. Maybe this kid you tuck in this way, and that kid you do something special in the morning that's just for them. And I know that it's hard, but if you schedule and then you have more intentional time with how you move through the day, I think that it can be done even in small moments.
Absolutely. So with my youngest, before we go to bed each night, we play Wordle. And he helps me with Wordle. And we do the New York spelling list, the crossword. It takes about 10 minutes.
How old is he?
He's 9.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a twofer.
Yeah.
Words, vocabulary, quality time.
Yep. And then my daughter, she loves, you know, anime. She loves drawing. She's actually a very talented, gifted artist. And so, you know, she'll sit with me and give me lessons, and I let her teach me how to draw.
That's cool.
My oldest, he's very analytical. And so we can get into like debates and stuff. And I think that's his love language, is having that kind of interaction where you can challenge intellectually. And so we'll talk about, you know, the news of the day, things that are current events and stuff like that. And then my middle son, he's 11, and he's a little bit of he's an anomaly. He's really hard to pinpoint. So we do a bunch of different things. We'll toss the football around together. You know, we'll talk about his favorite. He is into anime too. We'll talk about anime, even if I feel like, oh my God, I'm animate out, you know, and then he'll talk about his friends at school because he really has a heart of gold and that means something to him. And so and he likes to cook. So the other day he helped make spaghetti,
That's
you know,
fun.
and it's just something simple.
Sure.
And it doesn't really have to be these well thought out moments, because I think when we just let it be organic, that's going to be more meaningful.
Sure. So we have so much to talk about, and I really think that I want to dig in to some other topics that are more tricky in our second part. So we have a part 2 for this show.
Okay.
And I really thank you for showing up today to talk about this topic. You know, we're going to go a little deeper in part 2, but hopefully this gives our listeners some nuts and bolts about normalizing the things that we all go through as parents, but then doubling down on the single parent thing. It's twice as hard and half as supported. And so I really appreciate your candor and your vulnerability in sharing with us today in part 1 of this series on single parenting. So thank you.
No, thank you, Kelly.
Yes. I hope that you found this helpful. I will encourage you to tune in to part 2, as we've got a lot more to offer for this topic. And it really is an area where support is needed. So I commend you for watching today, because we really can't do it alone. And these resources hopefully will help make it a little bit easier. So until we meet again, don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.